What's up, you guys? Hope all is well. My name's Jeremy Verbit, and welcome to my first YouTube video. And today, I want to talk about how I plan to retire in 2 years at age 35. And the reason I chose to start on this early retirement journey may sound familiar. After graduating college, I took a job that completely sucked the life out of me. I'd come home after work so drained that I had no energy to do anything but to think about how much I dreaded going back to work the next day before I fall asleep and repeat. I mean, I would get up several times a day to go to the bathroom, not because I needed to, but because I just needed to find an excuse to get up from my desk and take a break. I found the thought of having to continue working that job until I'm 62 utterly depressing. And it turns out I'm not the only one that felt that way. According to a Gallup poll, 68% of workers aren't engaged in their job, and that number has been consistent since 2011. And if you're like me, I'm willing to bet you've done a Google search about how to retire early looking for answers. And while there's no magic formula that will enable you to retire tomorrow, there is a magic formula that will enable me to retire in 2 years after only 12 years of work. And no, this formula isn't become a YouTube star, make $1 million, and retire on a beach. But this formula can work for anyone, and it doesn't depend on how much you make. Sorta. The trick is that expenses matter a lot more than income. About 25 times as much. And that's because your yearly expenses happen every, year. And your nest egg needs to be big enough to generate those yearly expenses in investment returns, replacing your income with passive income. So how big is that? YouTuber Ontrajectory asked around his local college campus to find out.
If somebody was to give you a lump sum of money right now to retire for the rest of your life, how much money would you need?
Retire today?
100 million. 3 million.
Nah, I'd say maybe 10, because you can use 1 million. You can do 50,000 each year. That's
Oh no, let's make it 11.
Oh, 11, all right.
I don't know.
I feel like 10 million. I don't know.
10 trillion.
10 mil.
If I got like maybe 200,000, that would be good the rest of my life.
I need to have a lot. It be a lot.
How much is a lot? Like, what's a number?
700K. Yeah, like somewhere between 500,000 and $1 million.
Theoretically, you can take that money and move somewhere super cheap.
But to live in this country, you would need more. Like $20 million, and I still feel like that's a little too little.
$350,000?
5 to 6 million. Millions of dollars.
80,000. 80,000.
I would be chill. Like somebody give me $20.
This is one of my favorite questions to ask people just because the numbers they give me are hilarious. It's like, hey, what number do you need? 100 million? Oh, okay, so you plan on retiring? Oh, that's right, never.
It's interesting to see how varying those responses are, but given our education system teaches next to nothing about personal finance, it's not surprising. It actually wasn't until 1998 that we got our answer. 3 professors from Trinity University looked into it in what is called the Trinity Study. It found that for a 30-year retirement, a nest egg that withdraws 4% of its assets each year after adjusting for inflation would have a more than 96% chance of not running out of money. And I can hear you now.
But Jeremy, you said you could retire at age 35. That means you could run out of money after age 65. What are you going to do for the next 30 years after that?
Live off of Social Security. No, to be honest, I have no idea if Social Security will be around that long, or if it is, how it'll look. The good news is that 4% withdrawal rate doesn't go much lower as you increase the years in retirement. Karsten Jeske, also known as Big Earn from earlyretireatnow.com, a retired financial planning director with a doctorate in economics and a history working with the Fed, worked it out for us. A portfolio withdrawing 3.6% of its assets yearly, adjusted for inflation, could survive a 60-year retirement with a 95% probability of success. This means you only need about 1 divided by 3.6%, or about 28 times your yearly expenses, to retire forever. But how can you use this information to retire early? Your ability to accumulate 28 times your yearly expenses depends on your savings, which is just your after-tax income minus, you guessed it, expenses. By lowering your expenses, you both increase your savings and decrease the size of your nest egg necessary to retire. The idea was popularized by Pete Adeney, also known as Mr Money Mustache, via his shockingly simple math post. And it shows that the number of years you need to work to hit a nest egg large enough to retire drastically falls with each additional percentage of your income that you save by reducing your expenses. On one end of the spectrum, if you save 0% of your income, you will never save any money and you can never retire. On the other end of the spectrum, if you save 100% of your income, then you have no expenses and you can retire today. It's in the middle where it gets interesting. If you save 10% of your income, which is the average, it'll take you 51 years to retire. But if you increase your savings to 20% of your net income, you can retire in 37 years. That's an improvement, but it doesn't exactly complete our goal to retire early. Now, if you save half your income, you can retire in 17 years. We're getting closer. And if you save 2/3 of your income, which is around what I've saved on average throughout my career, you can retire in 10.5 years. To calculate your savings rate, sum up your net paychecks, which is the amount that actually hits your bank account, and add it to any contributions that were deducted from them for retirement plans like 401ks, 403bs, and 457s, and that is your net income. Do not add any retirement contributions that don't directly come out of your paycheck, like IRAs, because you already counted that income in your paycheck. Then, subtract your expenses. I like to use mint.com to track all of my expenses, but going over how to do that is a topic for another video. Then take the result of your net income, minus your expenses, and divide it by your net income. This will give you your savings rate. And using Mr. Money Mustache's shockingly simple math table, your years until retirement. But this assumes your net worth is 0. If you have some debt to pay off, it could take you a little longer. That's why I like to use Ontrajectory.com to enter in my income, expenses, and assets and let it project my retirement date for me. Okay, here I'm on the Ontrajectory.com website. It's a retirement calculator to project your retirement date based upon some inputs. The first of which is your income. I've entered in $100,000 here for the sake of simplicity in calculating savings rate. You input your expenses, and you input your accounts, which is all your investment accounts, bank accounts, etc. We are assuming that you're at a net worth of $0, so I have a starting balance of 0. And you'll see I have a 10% savings rate here. I'm going to enter in a projected retirement date, a projected end date, and a inflation rate. I'll keep that at 3%, but we'll assume we live to 100 years old. And in my retirement age, I will change that to be the years that we have discussed previously. So for a 10% savings rate, we said it would take about 51 years to retire. I have set my date here to be 30 years old to start. So I will input 81 years old into the retirement age to see what our chance of success is. Run the simulation, and we'll see it's a 100% chance of success. So that means I can likely retire before the age of 81. Let's take this down to age 80, rerun it, and see what that does to the calculation. Now I see I have a 95% chance of success, which is what we're targeting. So indeed, I can expect to retire after about 50 years with a 10% savings rate. Let's go ahead and change this to a 20% savings rate. All the calculations are the same, except you will see that my expenses have gone down a little bit. I will rerun this calculation again, but I will use a new retirement age. We said 20% savings rate, should be able to retire within about 37 years. So I will type in 67 here and run the calculation. And again, we see 100% chance of success. Let me again lower this to see if we can, how much lower we can retire. And run that, and now we see it's only a 68% chance of success. So indeed, you would not be able to retire until about 67 years old, and that is our number. Let's again try this for a 50% savings rate. So same thing here. I'm going to change the retirement age to a new number. We said 17 years was about the how long it would take before you could retire with a 50% savings rate. So I will insert 47 years here, rerun the calculation. Again, we get 100%. Let's test this to see how much earlier we could retire. Run that again, 100. Run it again, 68. So indeed, it would take around 16 years before I could actually retire with a 50% savings rate. Now let's try the 2/3 savings rate. I put it at 67% here. We said we expect you could retire in about 10 years. I'll go ahead and run it at age 40 to see where we're at. Again, 100% chance of success. So I will again stress test this to retire earlier. Load that, and we see a 72% chance of success, which is not enough for most people to gamble on. So again, we have about a 10-year retirement period when you're saving 67% of your income. You can adjust this to include assets and debt. So as your assets accumulate up, that you have a higher net worth than $0, then you will be able to retire earlier. If you include debt, then you will retire later. And this is a great tool to do those projections and see what your net worth could look like in the future. I hope this has given you an entertaining intro to one of the more powerful ideas that has guided me to an early retirement. After job hopping over a few gigs since my soul-sucking job I had out of college, I have been lucky enough to find a job I enjoy, so even after I become financially independent, I may not retire. That is, unless I retire and become a YouTube star. Just kidding. Love you guys. See you next time. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to see my next video, and comment down below, and I'll be sure to respond.